Hey folks, welcome back to Only the Best Fantasy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk about the World Fantasy Award nominees for 2024. So, the World Fantasy Award is the only genre award I pay attention to because I found, with very few exceptions, the books on that ballot every year tend to be some of the most fascinating fiction I read in any given year. Um, so yeah, I've finally finished reading everything on this year's ballot, and I just kind of want to go through them and talk about them and kind of decide on which one I would like to see win the award. So the first one I want to talk about is Alex E. Harrow's Starling House. Now, Alex E. Harrow is an author that I absolutely love. Once I see she's publishing something, it's an immediate pre-order for me. Um, and in Starling House, she gives us her take on the whole haunted house trope, the, the whole haunted house, sentient house trope. But she doesn't just stop there. She has a talent for just creating these complex, very intricate stories. And in addition to giving us that, she gives us the story of an author who's haunted by just like an insane author who's haunted by these visions, and she created this very unique book. Um, and as the story progresses, we find out the author may not quite be as insane as the book makes them out to be. Um, we have this sketchy as all hell house, and just the strange things that happen around it when our protagonist like essentially goes to begin working there in this kind and is exposed more and more to the proverbial haunted house. And in addition to that, it's a story of two orphans who they're just trying to make their way in the world. There's a bit of a fun family to it, and to just juxtapose to that, there's the family of the haunted house, which is just this like cast of like it's just this family driven by a lot of like intergenerational strife and trauma, and so like there's a lot of different things going on in this book, and together like it sounds like there's quite a lot to focus on, and it might not be that it could be a bit unwieldy, but that's not the case. Like Alexia Arub has, like I said, she has a talent for just bringing together so many different things to just create a really very interesting story, and that's what happens in this book. Like from start to finish, I just had a blast with this book, and it just reinforces my opinion of her as an author that I always want to read everything, everything she publishes. So that's Starling House by Alexi Harrow. The next one on the ballot that I want to talk about is Martha Wells' Witch King, and unfortunately for me, I have to say this is the weakest one on the ballot for me. Um, it's essentially like at the time I was under the impression it was a standalone. Since then, I found out that it's the start of a series, um, but it's essentially the story of um, it's like an okay fantasy novel revolving around Kai, this demon who a demon prince who essentially sets out to solve his own murder, and the story kind of unfolds from there in a very interesting way. Um, as he gets summoned, and he tries to figure out how he was killed, why he was killed, and all of these things. And there's like a quite a bit of complexity to how this world is structured, and that does play heavily into how that story plays. Honestly, this book didn't make too much of an impression for me. Like I said, I consider it the weakest pick of the ballot. Um, that's all I really have to say about Witch King. It didn't quite live up for me. If there's people who love this book, I apologize. But yeah, just to keep things moving along, the next book I want to talk about is Yale Goldstein-Love's The Possibilities, which is just this absolutely gut-wrenching story of this mother who she she suffers from trauma following a very difficult birth, um, a difficult labor, and as as time goes by, she starts to imagine like these worst case scenarios happening with her child, until a day comes when something does happen, and she it at that point she has to she has to tap into this ability that she has to try and save her child before it's too late. So like this is a very complex story. Like the it's first person, and it's this is very much a book about motherhood. Um, Being a caregiver, like I could relate to quite a bit of the fears and the concerns of the main character in this one. There are things like I feel on I like I've enjoyed on practically a daily basis since a certain situation happened in my life. But anyway, like this book was very emotionally impactful in that regard. Um, it wasn't an easy read. It really wasn't an easy read, which is a testament to just how potent it is for me. Um, and it was a brilliant book. Like it does kind of tap into the whole multiverse kind of thing, and it does some fascinating things there. I think the ending for the book in particular, I really wasn't sure how a book like this could end, but for me, the ending was just spot on for this type of story. Like, and overall, like I can't say it's a book I enjoyed reading, but it was a very compelling story, and one that I think is going to both live and haunt me for quite a while to come. But yeah, really interesting stuff. Then the next one I want to talk about on the ballot is Walter Labby's The Shigiri and the Brass Head of Obalufon. And this one is touted essentially as a Nigerian version of American Gods. And I kind of see that comparison in that Wool gives us a very a cast that has these very Nigerian sensibilities. The pantheon that he's looking at is the Orishas, which is I'm assuming a Nigerian pantheon, and then essentially this is a heist story. Like this one of the cool things about this book is just the way that it's structured. Like the pantheons are all organized into like like a spiritual version of late stage capitalism. So like each pantheon is its own company, and there's like these complex trade agreements and these complex agreements that govern everything from like trade to travel and who can interact with whose congregation and these different kind of things. Like it was very interesting, and our main character is a less than ideal is a less than stellar member of the pantheon who he gets entangled with succubus, and they just end up going on a pretty wild ride from there. Um, like it was a very cool book. Like it does quite a few things very interesting. There are some things in here that I think a lot of people are not going to be like a lot of Western people, they are going to like they might find it a little bit distasteful, but for me, like having interacted with so many Nigerian people, like I don't know, it just felt like very much like them to me. Well, at least the people that I've interacted with, at least like the characterization for me was just spot on. Good and bad, I can say. So like this was a really good book. In terms of like if I had to rank these books, I would put this at about mid among the ballot picks. Like on any other given year, it might have won. It might have been my pick for. It might have been my pick for the book I want to see win the award. But there's two books left to talk about, and for me, these two books are the two strongest ones to win this. From my hopes at least, the two strongest ones to talk about. The first of those is Catriona Ward's Looking Glass Sound, and this is I can really only describe this as I kind of have to go with the phrase genre defying, but it really is like a genre defying novel of horror where like these kids they essentially have like a summer of horror where there was like a serial killer on the loose, and that story kind of unfolds. But Catriona Ward takes that whole trope, the whole summer of horror childhood trauma kind of thing, Like, you know, those kind of stories. Stephen King did it. I think Robert McCommon did it, and now Katrina Wars did it. But she framed hers in a very interesting way. Like, this book is very meta. The farther, the more and more the book progresses, the more recursive the story becomes, and it starts to become a story within a story, and it just does some very fascinating things from there. Like the way this book ends is nothing like what you could possibly be prepared for when you start reading this book. It was just incredible. Like, going in towards the end, it just completely blew my mind. A really incredible book. Definitely worth a read. She like, I had on second thought, I think on any other given year, this book would have been my pick to win the award. Not so much Shigidi. Like, this book, when I think back on all of these books that I've discussed, these 5 books that I've discussed so far, Looking Glass Song was spectacular. But the book, my personal favorite of the ballot this year, and the book that I think deserves to win this award, is none other than Tananarive Dew's The Reformatory. And this is just this book was just like gut wrenching. This relentlessly brutal punch to the stomach. There was nothing fun about reading this book. There was nothing lighthearted. Katrina Ward set out to hear me now. Sorry, my apologies. Not Katrina Ward. Tananarive Dew. She set out to tell a very potent story of racism, like a no holds barred story of racism in the 1950s, and that's exactly what she did. From start to finish, this book was just comfortable to read, and that's the point. Like, it's essentially the story of this black kid who he gets into a confrontation with a white kid, but obviously, like, with the dynamics, he ends up essentially sentenced to the reformatory, the Greystone School, the Greystone Boys School, which is a reformatory, and it's a complete horror show. Like, kids go in there and do not come out alive. Technically, like, there's ghosts in this book, but the ghosts are they're the least of the horror included in this book. Like, this horror is very much driven by the just the things that humans do to one another. It's an incredible story about racism, and it's not just in terms of like one person being racist against another. It just looks at racism in so many different forms, like the systematic way, just the systematic way it's upheld by the institutions, the way the community, for better or worse, enforces it, the way, it's a very incredible book. I'll leave it at that. It's a very incredible book. It's one I feel like it's not going to be a fun read, it's not going to be a pleasant read, but it is a book that I think needs to be read. There's quite a few people talking about this book, and there's good reason why. Like, this book was a gut punch to read. Like I said, absolutely, and just an incredible experience. And when I look at the ballot this year, like, if I had to narrow it down to like my top 3, it would be Looking Glass Song, The Reformatory, and Starling House. And if I had to pick one, I would say, like, I would like to see The Reformatory win. It's just that incredible a book. And yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the World Fantasy Award ballot for this year. I think the award is going to be, like, the whole convention and stuff is going to be held like late October, so we'll find out when who's the winner pretty soon. But yeah, if any of these books sound fascinating, drop a comment, let me know. If you're interested in the ballot, if you've read any of these, drop a comment, let me know. Like, they're all very fascinating books, definitely worth checking out. And yeah, if you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.